Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today let's go over the market. Let's see what happened to Tesla. A pretty wild day, guys. I'm not gonna lie, a pretty scary day in my opinion. At one point it looked phenomenal. At one point it looked atrocious. Now it's looking potentially okay. So let's just talk about it, guys. As usual, if you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. Again, remember, none of this is financial advice. Make your own decisions, do your own research, all that good stuff as per usual. But yeah, jumping right into it. So Tesla ending the day pretty flat for the most part, down just only 0.24%, which, I mean, for Tesla, that's essentially zero. Which, considering the market, SPY only down about almost 1%, but QQ down about 1.6%, right? Tesla definitely with a pretty, pretty respectable outperformance today, if I do say so myself. Though at some point it was, so pre-market, so there's a lot to talk about today, man. So I'll try to make it quick but concise and, informative. So pre-market Tesla was up about 4 to 5%, something like that. And then as the market was about to open, it went down to about 2% up. And then it started off, I think, going a little bit green overall or something like that. It was up about 3%-ish. And then it just plummeted straight down. Like, we just go on, like, pretty much the intraday chart, right? You can see we kind of started, pretty decent, like about 3% over here. And then we just straight plummeted down, kind of with the market, really. The market never really recovered. Well, Tesla actually had a massive recovery. Someone was buying here for sure. But yeah, Tesla had a massive recovery here, which is, it's good to see. That's what you want to see, which is fantastic, right? A bit of a potential, like, very intraday cup and handle here. But nonetheless, right, beautiful recovery against the market. And this is what caused the outperformance overall. Otherwise, it was kind of in line, actually. But nonetheless, Tesla went from up 3% to, like, down 3% or something like that. Essentially, a 6% move from peak to trough. It might have been even 7%, right? Which looked really bad. Now, the issue with this was the fact that it looked bad because we went below 150 by a sizable amount. I think the lowest was like about 146 roughly, which is a decent amount lower than 150, right? Just from like the 150 level, that is about almost a 3% like drop, if you will, I guess, from that level, which is, again, a level I talked about, many times, that I personally view to be really important. I did say give or take a couple of points, right? And the reason I said that is because, it's not going to exactly bounce at 150 on the dot, right? Although the market tends to always kind of go a little bit lower or a little bit higher. It tends to, like, fake people out a lot of the times. And I'll be completely honest, it actually faked me out today as well. So I took a bit of a loss today, mainly because the sold puts that I had for end of this month, I actually ended up buying them all back and reselling them at a lower strike, in this case at 150 for January 20. So I essentially kind of rolled them at a loss, though, unfortunately. And the main reason I did that was because, number one, I wanted to de-risk. Number two, it looked really bad down here, right? So it looked really, really bad. It looked like Tesla was potentially going to actually just straight up crash in even more, believe it or not, which at this point it's hard to not believe that. But I'll be completely honest, it faked me out as well. This was a massive bear trap. Like, this was a massive bear trap, because on top of that, I also went below both these lines over here on, like, the 30-minute, even actually the 1 hour I didn't check the 1 hour. I should check the 1 hour. But yeah, but nonetheless, like, even before it kind of went back up, right, like, this whole candle was just leaking below these, like, major areas that I personally didn't want to see. So it was a pretty massive bear trap, with all due respect, right? And yeah, it got me as well, right? I'm not immune to it. I'm not perfect, right? I'll make mistakes as well. So I ended up taking a bit of a loss as I rolled those out, but it is a lot safer. And if I happen to execute them, I'm essentially buying at 150 now, a bunch of shares, as opposed to buying at, like, 160 or like 165, or even one of them I had at 180, right? So yeah, absolutely, definitely taking a bit of a hit there, but it's substantially safer in my opinion. But nonetheless, that's not the point. We're not here to talk about my trade, right? We're not talking about that. We're talking about Tesla. So because we were able to essentially, I mean, we closed at 149.87. I mean, that's pretty much 150, right? It's off by, like, what, 13 cents, right? You can argue that that's, good enough for now, especially considering that we went substantially below and we did recover. Now, you can make the argument that this is a hammer candle. Now, it's a little bit of a sussy hammer candle. Number one, it's a red hammer candle. I put a lot less weight into those in terms of, being a potential reversal sign compared to a green one, number one. Number two, the wick at the bottom isn't as long as I would like it to be, or in other words, the candle itself, like, the fat part of the candle, if you will, like the visible part, like this, this really, really red, thick part here, a little bit bigger than I would like to see, personally. If we close somewhere maybe around 151 or a little bit higher, that would have been, okay, that's not too bad. That, that's, let's talk about that, right? But unfortunately with this one, it's kind of like, it's possible. It is possible. It is very, very possible, but it's a lot less convincing, is the only thing I would say. To me, this is more of like a 50-50 type of hammer candle, as opposed to if it was green and or the actual candle itself, the thickness part was smaller and higher up. then that's like substantially increasing the odds or the percentage at this being a potential reversal signal. However, even with that being said, it's still not too bad. It's just, it's a little more 50-50 to me right now. But with the market and the way it is, I did enter actually some SPY calls, very, very small amount, you know, relative to my portfolio, like minuscule, like literally like 1%. Because I'm very safe when it comes to options or buying options. I don't like to gamble on that kind of stuff. I just enter just as a small trade, kind of for fun, honestly. But with the SPY selling off this aggressively from peak to trough over the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trading days, from absolute peak to absolute, let's do closing price. Let's do closing price. 7.5% drop, just straight, just completely straight down, right? So naturally, I'm also expecting a bounce. It did kind of, you can argue gap fill over here, right? You can definitely make that argument as well, you know, and just after this much drop, you know, it's bound for a bit of a relief rally, right? A bit of a relief bounce. And technically, in the kind of shorter-ish time frame here, SPY's technically it's still somewhat in a bull trend, mainly because, you know, if we bounce from here, that is technically still a higher low, at least in this little small trend that we are seeing right here, right? On top of that, if you want to also look at fibs, you know, we did bounce right off the 50 fib on the SPY, which is great to see. We did close pretty much right at it. You can see right here, which is not too bad at all to see as well. So I did enter some SPY calls just, you know, for January 20th. I did, it's pretty safe, like 380 calls January 20th, right? Just entered literally one contract. Nothing too crazy at all, of course. But nonetheless, you know, I do think the market is looking to bounce, and it does kind of go in line with what I'm personally seeing for Tesla, which I definitely think Tesla, as long as it's 150-ish, give or take, again, on 1 or 2 points, doesn't have to be, you know, decimal perfect. But as long as this level that we happen to recapture, thankfully, as long as it holds, you know, I am actually feeling, you know, pretty good. I'm not feeling too bad whatsoever, right? Now, the main thing to pay attention to for Tesla is, of course, still overall this little downtrend that we are in for the yellow lines, and of course the overall major downtrend that we are still in, which is the blue lines, which is essentially the yellow lines, just of course a much bigger time scale, right? This is a very short time scale. This is like a short to medium time scale, right? So these are the two main levels still to pay attention to, and thankfully we held the bottom line of both of them today, even though again we pretty much did leak below it for a little bit, and then thankfully got recaptured fairly aggressively. You can see just how much buying pressure came in as we came down to these levels, just absolute straight buying pressure, straight selling into straight buying pressure, right? So the bulls and the bears absolutely fighting within this area, though I do think the bulls are going to win because the bears, I think, are going to be running out of steam here a little bit, because naturally, like when something keeps running up, naturally the bulls will eventually get exhausted, and you know, only so many people are going to keep buying and buying and buying as it keeps going higher, higher, higher. Flip scenario for the bears, right? Same concept more or less. Less people are going to start shorting, less people will start selling. Well, I mean, in theory, at least, the more it falls and falls and falls, right? That's just kind of the idea there. But on top of that, there's also more, I'm like blanking on the word now, more, I guess, fundamental-ish, if you will, reasons as to why I personally think Tesla can bounce here relative to potential news coming out and news that has come out. So the one that has come out is, of course, you know, the whole Twitter Elon drama, saga, whatever you want to call it, that, you know, that arc, if you will, has potentially come to a somewhat close. Elon did over the weekend tweet how he wants to, or he made a poll rather, which I'll show you guys if you haven't seen it yet. Just, I mean, somehow, if you're a Tesla shareholder and you haven't seen it, I don't know what you're doing, but we'll take a look at it, you know, just in case. But, you know, Elon did make essentially this little poll over here where he's asking if he should step down as the head of Twitter. I will abide by the results of this poll. I, of course, voted yes as a Tesla shareholder. Now, this is a good sign, and obviously the poll has closed with a, you know, quite dominant yes victory, landslide, right? Which is good. And the reason that's good is because, you know, potentially, hopefully, this at least maybe doesn't completely remove the Twitter noise, but it should at least, you know, substantially lower that Twitter noise. And, you know, hopefully Elon, at least, you know, in the public's eyes, can start focusing more on Tesla, even though he'd probably still be focusing on Twitter, just maybe more in the background, but that's fine. But as long as the public's eyes and, you know, Wall Street and everything don't really see all this Twitter noise constantly happening, that to me was an absolute detriment to Tesla stock. That's number one. Number two, Elon's window to sell more shares for Twitter has officially closed last week, Friday. So he cannot sell any more shares unless it's something that was pre-planned way in advance, like those 10-5B, whatever they're called, I believe, which was essentially compensation plans-ish. Unless something like that is still executed. That's the only thing that's allowed. But in terms of him just being like, yeah, I need to go sell more because Twitter's, you know, fucked, he can't do that up until about January 20th, give or take a few days, essentially around the earnings call, which is happening, you know, for the Q4 earnings call, which is happening around that January 20th date. Actually, it says right here, January 23rd, which is going to be that Wednesday. So there you go. Somewhere around there, he can't sell up until then, something like that. I think after the earnings call, I believe. But nonetheless, that's a bullish sign. So we have a lot less of potential Elon, you know, weighing down the stock, you know, worries or issues to think about or whatever. That's really not much of a issue at all, actually, at the very moment, which is great, right? So hopefully he's not going to be just destroying Tesla stock every time he's looking for a bounce, which he did like 3 times, like unironically. And the final thing is the fundamental potential for Tesla itself is the fact that they are expected, at least it's a rumor, to announce their next gigafactory location, which should be in northeastern part of Mexico, which is going to be extremely bullish and extremely just very good news, which is essentially what you want to hear, right? That's exactly what you want to be hearing, which is fantastic news. Now, all of those put together, especially if the news happens to come out, let's say tomorrow or like later this week, maybe even next week, right? That's going to be a bullish push for Tesla. Elon not being able to sell is bullish. Elon stepping down from Twitter, or at least lowering his, as he has open voice, if you will, within that whole saga, also bullish. Tesla recapturing 150 after falling decently below it. Pretty good sign. It's still holding this overall little descending wedge, which is overall a bullish pattern. It's bearish while it's happening, but the breakout tends to be for the bulls to the north side, northeast, if you will, side, which so far it held, though today was extremely close and extremely extremely worrisome. Like it even caught me off guard too, to be completely honest, right? So it happens to the best of us. So not that I'm the best, but you know what I mean. The point is it happens to everyone. So yeah, that's a good sign. There's a lot of things here that happened today and that happened over the weekend that, to me at least, seem like it's primed for a bounce. And a lot of people are still calling for Tesla to go to like 50, which again, who knows? Maybe Tesla will go to 50. That doesn't mean it deserves to be at 50. I very much think it doesn't deserve to be like anywhere remotely close to 50. But when it comes to financial turmoils, if you will, you never really know. However, just with all that being said and done, I personally think this is the spot for Tesla to bounce, if there was any spot at all for Tesla to bounce, right? We're still hugging the red line of the Bollinger Band quite aggressively. So yeah, I'm liking it, guys. I think it looks great here. I definitely want to see Tesla get a nice little bit of a bounce here. I definitely want to see it break out of this little yellow channel as kind of step number 1, which will essentially be, as long as we can go above pretty much today's highs, really, 150 kind of 4-ish, I would say. It's looking pretty decent already. That's something I'd want to see for sure. And we'll see what happens, and we'll see where it takes us. My first main target, if we do bounce out from here, will easily be to around 170 to 180. And we'll see if that happens and where that takes us from there. But all in all, guys, that's kind of what I'm seeing. The bullish divergence is still just ever so slightly holding, which is good. At least, it's getting close though to breaking apart and falling apart. So we'll see what happens with that. But thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you think down below. See you guys for the next one. Peace.